You just got a promotion, more money, more responsibility, better title, and you're excited. Finally, you're going to be able to breathe financially. You're going to save more. You're going to invest. You're going to build real wealth. So you celebrate. Maybe you go out to dinner. You think about all the things you're going to do with the extra money. You're imagining the possibilities. And then the first paycheck hits, and it's less than you expected. The taxes are higher than you thought. Wait, that can't be right. You got a raise. Why does it feel like you barely got more money? So you adjust. You tell yourself that next month will be better. But next month comes, and you're still not seeing the big financial boost you expected. And somehow your extra money has already been absorbed into your lifestyle. Nicer apartment, better restaurants, new hobbies. And you're right back to living paycheck to paycheck, just with a nicer version of paycheck to paycheck. And I spend way too much time thinking about this paradox. Why people can make more and more money, get raise after raise, reach the income level they dreamed about, and still feel broke. Why income feels like it doesn't matter. And I've noticed that almost always it comes down to one specific number. One number that most people get completely wrong. And if this number is wrong, your income doesn't matter. You could make $200,000 a year and still be stressed about money. You could make $1 million and still feel like you're barely getting by. But if you get this number right, everything changes. Okay, so let me just tell you the number. It's your burn rate, your monthly burn rate, how much money you spend every single month on average. And I know that sounds simple. I know most people think they have a general idea of what they spend, but almost nobody actually knows their real burn rate. They think they spend like $4,000 a month, but when they actually track it, it's $6,000 or $7,000 or more. And that gap, the gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend, that's where all your money goes. That's where your raises disappear. That's why getting more income doesn't make you feel more rich. Here's why this is so critical. Imagine you're making $5,000 a month, and you think you spend $4,000, so you have $1,000 left over. That $1,000 is what you're supposed to save or invest or use to build wealth. But what if your actual burn rate is $5,000? What if you're actually spending every penny you make? Then you're not building wealth. You're not saving for the future. You're just treading water. You feel broke because you are broke, financially speaking. And the thing that kills me about this is that you don't know. You think you're saving. You think you're doing okay, but you're not. You're just spending more than you realized. And when you get a raise, when your income goes to $6,000, you still think you're spending $4,000. So you think you now have $2,000 to save. But really, your burn rate probably increased to $6,000 automatically. Your lifestyle expanded. You're still broke. You just feel temporarily wealthy until the reality sets in. So why is this number so hard to figure out? Why don't people know how much they actually spend? Part of it is that expenses are fragmented. You spend money at 100 different places. Coffee here, groceries there, subscription there, going out to eat, gas, utilities, insurance, random stuff on Amazon. It's all over the place, so your brain can't track it intuitively. And part of it is intentional psychological avoidance, because once you know your burn rate, once you see the actual number, you can't ignore it anymore. You have to confront the reality of your spending, and that's uncomfortable. So instead, we stay ignorant. We make vague estimates. I spend like $4,000 or $5,000 a month, which means we have no idea. We could be off by $1,000. We could be off by $2,000. And that ignorance is comfortable. It lets us tell ourselves the story we want to believe, that we're doing okay, that we're saving, that when we get a raise, it's going to make a real difference. But the ignorance is also what's keeping us broke. There's also this thing called the visibility effect. You tend to remember the big, obvious expenses, the rent, the car payment. But you forget or minimize all the small stuff, the little purchases, the subscriptions you don't remember signing up for, the fast food, the impulse buys. And the small stuff adds up. It's probably 30, 40, 50% of your total burn rate. But because it's not visible, because you're not tracking it, you just don't see it. So you think you're spending less than you are, and the gap between what you think and what's real is where all your money goes. Let me tell you what happens when you actually calculate your real burn rate. It's not pleasant. I did this a few years ago. I pulled up my bank statement for the last 3 months, and I calculated everything I spent, and I was shocked. I thought I was spending around $3,000 a month. My actual burn rate was $4,200. $4,200. I was off by $1,400 a month. That's almost $17,000 a year. And I thought I was keeping track of my spending reasonably well. So where was the $1,400 going? Everywhere. A little bit here, a little bit there. Restaurant bills that I didn't remember. Subscription charges that I'd forgotten about. Shopping on bad days. Online purchases that were impulse buys. And here's the thing that was scary. I was thinking I was saving. I was thinking I had room to invest. But really, I was much closer to my actual income than I realized. And once I saw that number, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't go back to pretending. I had to actually deal with it. Most people have this experience when they finally calculate their real burn rate, and it's always higher than they expected. Always. I've never met someone who was shocked that they were spending less than they thought. Here's where this gets really important, because it explains why two people making the same income can have completely different financial outcomes. Person A makes $80,000 a year. Their burn rate is $5,000 a month. They spend $60,000 a year. They have $20,000 left over to save, to invest, to build wealth. Person B also makes $80,000 a year, but their burn rate is $7,000 a month. They spend $84,000 a year. They're going backward. They're going into debt. Same income, completely different financial outcomes. The difference is the burn rate. And here's the thing that most people don't understand. Your burn rate is actually under your control. You can change it. But your income isn't always under your control. Your burn rate is. So if you're focused on increasing income, you might be focusing on the wrong thing. You might be grinding away, trying to get that next promotion, trying to make more money, while your burn rate is eating up every extra penny. But if you focus on reducing your burn rate, if you figure out where all that money is going, and you eliminate the stuff that's not serving you, you can actually build wealth. You can actually save. You can actually invest. And here's the beautiful part. Reducing your burn rate is faster than increasing your income. It's easier. You can do it immediately. You don't have to wait for a promotion or a new job. But almost nobody does this. Almost everybody is chasing more income instead of reducing burn rate. And that's why they stay broke even as they make more money. Okay, so there's a reason why burn rate keeps increasing even when income increases. It's called lifestyle expansion, and it's automatic. When you get more money, you automatically spend more. You don't decide to. It just happens. You go to nicer restaurants. You buy better clothes. Your apartment is a little nicer. Your car is a little newer. You treat yourself more often. And each individual decision feels small. I'll just get this slightly nicer apartment. That's only $300 more a month. I'll eat out a little more often. That's $200. I'll upgrade my phone. That's $100. I'll get some new hobbies. But it all adds up. And before you know it, your burn rate has increased by $1,000 a month. And your raise? Gone. Completely absorbed by lifestyle expansion. And the thing that's wild is that it happens automatically. You don't have to consciously decide to spend more. Your brain just does it. Because your brain is always trying to normalize your lifestyle to your income level. So if you make more, you live better. That's just how it works. The only way to break this pattern is to be intentional about your burn rate. You have to actively decide, my income went up, but I'm going to keep my burn rate the same. And you have to actually follow through on that decision. Most people don't. They let lifestyle expansion happen automatically, and then they're confused about why they're not building wealth, even though they're making more money. Okay, so how do you actually calculate and fix your burn rate? Because knowing the problem is one thing, actually fixing it is another. First, you need to know the number. Pull up your bank statement for the last 3 months. Add up everything you spent. Divide by 3. That's your average monthly burn rate. And be thorough. Include everything: subscriptions, groceries, gas, entertainment, eating out, everything. Don't try to estimate. Actually add it up, because the estimate is what's been lying to you all along. Second, break your burn rate into categories. How much is housing? How much is food? How much is transportation? How much is entertainment and dining? How much is subscriptions and random purchases? Once you see where the money is actually going, you can start making intentional decisions about what to cut. Third, identify the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's easy to cut without actually affecting your quality of life. Subscriptions you're not using, eating out when you could cook, impulse purchases you don't actually need. Most people can probably cut 5 to 10% from their burn rate without really noticing. That's $500 to $1,000 a month for someone spending $5,000. That's $6,000 to $12,000 a year. Fourth, think about whether your burn rate is actually buying you happiness. Because if you're spending $6,000 a month and it's not making you happy, why are you spending $6,000? Maybe you could spend $5,000 and be just as happy, or happier, because you'd have breathing room financially. Fifth, separate wants from needs. Not everything you're spending money on is necessary, and not everything that's necessary costs as much as you're currently paying. And sixth, once you get your burn rate down, protect it. Don't let lifestyle expansion creep back in. When you get a raise, don't immediately increase your burn rate. Keep it the same. The extra money goes to savings and investment. Here's what I want you to understand about the power of controlling your burn rate. It's not just about reducing what you spend. It's about gaining actual control over your financial life. Because the truth is, income is somewhat out of your control. You can work toward a promotion, but it's not guaranteed. You can try to start a business, but it might fail. You can't always control your income. But burn rate, that's all you. You control that completely. You decide what to spend money on. You decide what's worth it and what's not. You control that number. And the smaller that number is, the more power you have. Because the smaller your burn rate, the less income you need. And the less income you need, the more options you have. If your burn rate is $3,000 a month, you need $36,000 a year just to survive. But if your burn rate is $5,000 a month, you need $60,000. So by reducing your burn rate from $5,000 to $3,000, you freed yourself up. You need less income, you have more flexibility. You could take a lower-paying job that you actually like. You could take more time off. You could take bigger risks because you have a lower financial threshold. The people who end up wealthy, who actually build real financial security, they usually do it by controlling their burn rate. They don't earn that much more than anyone else, but they spend that much less. And the difference between what they earn and what they spend is what builds wealth. So here's the conversation that nobody wants to have, but it's the conversation that actually matters. Most people are in denial about their burn rate. They think they're responsible. They think they're saving. They think they're doing okay. But they're not being honest with themselves about how much they actually spend. And that denial is costing them their future. It's preventing them from building wealth. It's keeping them stressed about money, even as they make more and more income. The real conversation is, what is my actual burn rate, and is it serving me? Because if your burn rate is wrong, if you don't actually know how much you're spending, then your income doesn't matter. You could double your income and still be broke because your burn rate would just expand to meet it. But if you know your burn rate, if you're intentional about it, if you're willing to control it, then income doesn't have to be huge for you to build wealth. You don't have to make $1 million to be financially secure. You just have to make sure that your burn rate is lower than your income. So here's what I want you to take from this. Your income doesn't actually determine your financial future. Your burn rate does. Two people with the same income can have completely different financial outcomes based on what they spend. One person could be on their way to wealth. Another could be going into debt. The difference is the burn rate. And most people are completely in the dark about their burn rate. They guess, they estimate, they assume, and the assumptions are keeping them poor. But if you actually calculate your burn rate, if you face the number honestly, if you get intentional about reducing it, everything changes. You don't need a promotion. You don't need a side hustle. You don't need to earn more money. You just need to spend less. And that's something you can control today. So I want you to do something tonight, this week. Pull up your bank statements, calculate your actual burn rate, face the number, see where all the money is actually going. It might be uncomfortable, it might be shocking. You might discover that you're spending way more than you thought. But that moment of honesty is the moment where you get actual power. Because once you know the real number, you can do something about it. And that's where wealth starts. Not with a big income, not with a fancy job, with the decision to be honest about how much you actually spend and to take control of that number. Thank you for thinking through this with me. If this resonated, please share it with someone who needs to calculate their real burn rate. And let me know in the comments, when you actually calculated your real burn rate, were you surprised? How far off were you from your estimate? Thanks for watching.